Hello and welcome to the latest Blood Red podcast with myself, Keifer MacDonald, Ian Doyle and Theo Squires. Doyle, first podcast back for you in a while. How's things?
Okay, yeah, yourself?
Yeah, good. Happy to be joined by yourself.
Has anything happened?
No, well, we'll get into that shortly.
The manager spoke, or the new head coach spoke. That's about it.
And Theo, how are you? Back from the Euros final?
Yeah, I'm dying. Football didn't come home, but the lurgy did. Yeah, I've got a week off after this, flying out into the sun, so I apologise in advance if anyone is on my flight, because you're probably going to be struck down by illness and I'm going to ruin your holiday.
I didn't know if the lurgy coming home was a reference to Doyle back on the podcast.
Well, that's not very nice, is it?
No, well, it is a Friday, so I will let it slide. So plenty to talk about today. Liverpool coming to the end of the third week of pre-season, Doyle. Today there's going to be a friendly, we're not sure when it's going to be played, but against Preston North End of the Championship. I mean, it's quite an interesting one. Obviously, we'll be behind closed doors, so details obviously be difficult to get. But, a host of players involved, Mohamed Salah, Wataru Endo, Dominic Szoboszlai potentially. And then next week we move forward. It'll be off to America for Liverpool.
Yes, our friend, colleague, Paul Gorst, he's going. He's my friend. Not sure whether he's your friend. I can't speak for you. But, he'll be heading out on Thursday. I think he flies to the States. They're playing, who was it, Betis. Arsenal, Man United, exotic, as you can imagine.
A nice reunion in that first one, didn't
exactly, yeah. I think it's been actually quite interesting to look at it from afar, what's been going on. Obviously, I've been back working this week, but the fact that Slot just seems to have slotted in quite, quite effortlessly, shall we say, from what you've seen. Obviously, some of the players are starting to come back. Was it Szoboszlai, Robertson, Jaros? They came back. I think it was Tuesday, wasn't it? They were back at the AXA. And it's going to be like that, isn't it, for the next couple of weeks? Although, given the fact that the majority of the other players ended up playing in the final, or at least getting to the semi-final, there's not going to be many coming back before they go to America, I think. Possibly, did we say Jota and Alisson? Could be two. Other than that, probably the rest of them are just going to wait until after they come back. And then there's only 2 weeks to go. So this next couple of weeks, and the time that he's had so far, Slot, I think it's been good for him because he's been able to assess the players that perhaps he would otherwise not been able to close up, such as the youngsters coming through. You think someone like Kay Gordon, someone like Ben Doku, who didn't play a lot second half of last season, someone like Tyler Morton, who was on loan at Hull City, and I think it was Theo wrote about Fabio Carvalho, was it, or was it Gorsty? One of you two wrote about him. So he's another one that kind of, out of sight, out of mind for a lot of Liverpool fans for last season, but he could come back into the fray. And they're playing, I think we knew even before I went off, the suggestion was they were going to be playing behind closed doors friendlies, partly because I think there's nothing to be gained from Slot. Jurgen Klopp liked to take the team away on a warm weather training, but there's nothing to be gained from that because Slot needs to know what it's like around the AXA, what it's like on Merseyside, what it's like with the players at close quarters in familiar surroundings, or what will become familiar surroundings. So I do think, overall, the games themselves will be just, again, with friendlies, we always say that we can't judge too much from them in terms of results. I'm not even going to see the performances of this, and I think they're might be playing another one before they go out to America. Not sure on that, but it'll be good just for the head coach himself to deduce what he's going to be working with, and it's a chance for them to impress. So I think it'll also be another sign to see how far Liverpool have progressed in terms of their fitness as well, because they're going to be playing Preston. It might even be going on now, as far as we know. But they're obviously going to be a week ahead because in their preparations, because the championship season starts. And I believe you've now got a message.
No. I was just about to ask you, what kind of things then can we expect from these behind closed doors games? I know you've been on a few camps where they have done them before. Is it typically just a fitness exercise for them?
No, it's a game, isn't it? It's a game. I mean, it depends what they do. I mean, obviously, with it being behind closed doors, they can do whatever they want. And a lot of it will have to do with Preston, whether it's 60 minutes, whether it's 90. I can't say it being 60, to be fair. But again, we're just guessing. I think it's just, it's like the old days. No one was really fussed about friendlies because you never saw them. But it's only since the advent of club media and us poking our fingers in. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, stuff like that people have put more stock in it. So, no, I think it's one where it'll only be when they play Betis we get a better idea of what's going on.
Absolutely. And Theo, totally mentioned a few names there that, can maybe grasp the opportunity while the likes of, Darwin Núñez, Luis Diaz and those kind of players are away. Which, not maybe youngsters, but fringe players are you looking forward to seeing this pre-season then?
Well, it's one where when they go to the States, you're waiting for those senior players to come back. So whoever's out there in the States, those are the ones who have impressed. And as we're not really getting a glimpse there, it's just seeing who's around, who is going to get the opportunity. Like, you want to see what Tyler Morton can do after a very successful loan. It'll be interesting to see what exactly happens with Sepp van den Berg. Like, we've heard him talk about how he'd like to move on, but we've seen them miss out on Leny Yoro, and you can understand why with finances, everything involved. If Van den Berg's having an impressive pre-season, which it sounds like it, he's working with his compatriot here, someone from the same hometown in the Netherlands. Is that an opportunity for him to be one of the centre-back options? It'll be interesting to see what Fabio Carvalho can do, as Doyley's already mentioned. There is a whole host of players here that could step up, and we saw a lot of them step up and state their claim last year. You're not going to be as many this time around because they're in the Champions League rather than the Europa League. But there's still, Liverpool have got a very successful academy and have done for a number of years now, and they're starting to see the fruits of that labour because the players are now of senior age, so it's now or never. If you're in the first team, this is it. You're proper, ready to follow in the footsteps of Curtis Jones, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Harvey Elliott, Kelleher, and it's going to be really beneficial for them going forward. Liverpool haven't been in this situation at the terms of the start of a pre-season with a new manager since Brendan Rodgers in 2012, where there's all these younger faces out there trying to state their claim, having these auditions. So that's exciting for them as well. And it will just be interesting to see who is part of the plans, because there's so many players here that could potentially go on loan or could stake their claim and be in that squad. When Klopp came in, remember, he wasn't too much of a fan of the loan market, was he? I preferred to keep it with Dortmund too, I think, when he was in Germany. And it was only through time with England that he realised there is the strength in loaning out to the Championship, League One. It's a very competitive league. And imagine in Holland, whilst it's a very strong top flight, if you're one of the top teams, you don't quite have that same depth underneath. So I think Arne Slot's already said that he's kind of surprised by the quality he's got in those youth ranks coming through, how they've got the exact same attitude and ability as the first team. They've got that same intensity because they've been schooled in this way of playing with pretty much the entire Klopp reign, haven't they? So we've seen time and time again, these players are ready to step up. It's just if they get the opportunities, and this is what this summer's going to be all about.
Absolutely. And one player Theo just mentioned there isn't a Liverpool player. He now plays for Manchester United. That is Leny Yoro. Signed yesterday for an initial £52 million. He was linked with Liverpool earlier in the summer. There has been kind of a reporting, and obviously you guys have reported it as well.
So it's what I wrote, basically.
No, you wrote that.
You wrote it before you went away, and then nothing happened until you came back.
But the stance you've kind of said all summer, Doyley, was that Liverpool, didn't value him at maybe what United and maybe even other teams across Europe did, and they were very much, expecting him to go to Real Madrid. Obviously, that didn't happen in the end. How do you view that then? Is it a missed opportunity for Liverpool, or are you looking at it as Liverpool have sufficient cover there, and United have just overpaid for someone who wasn't really on the market for Liverpool at that price?
Well, what you got to bear in mind is that Liverpool have already got 4 centre backs, and I know people say, well, Matip went, but Quansah came through. So, you could say me personally, I'd like another one. That's just me, because I think Gomez has only played 1 game at centre backs. I'm pretty sure it's started 1 game at centre back, if maybe 2 actually, since the Real Madrid game in the Champions League when they got beat 5-2.
You would have had
got injured.
Premier League when Van Dijk was suspended,
exactly,
maybe.
Yeah. And then that's when Quansah came in at Wolves. So, and then he's played obviously very well at left back and right back in a couple of games at defensive midfield as well. So he's become more of a versatile play. As much as you think he is a centre back by trade, he's become that. So if they don't get a centre back, they've got enough to get along with. But in terms of Yoro, there's a couple of things going on here. The first one is that he's out of contract at the end of next season. So how much money do you want to pay for a player who's out of contract in less than 12 months? Now, Real Madrid are very good at doing this, and they obviously had a look and went, we quite like him. As far as we were aware, and to be honest, I'm pretty sure it would be the case. If Real Madrid had made the bid, he'd have gone there because he wanted to. But Real Madrid didn't make a bid, and Liverpool didn't make a bid, and Paris Saint-Germain were interested, and they didn't make a bid either because none of them wanted to meet the asking price. Now, the other complication on top of that for Liverpool is obviously just mentioned, got 4 centre backs. I think Real Madrid, I know Nacho's left, but I think they've got a couple of centre backs, certainly some good ones there.
Their issue was a lot of them were injured last year, but then they'll have them coming back. So like Militao, Alaba, they've got options there. They just need to get them free from injury.
So the point is, they're very much in Liverpool's boat where, we really like him, but I'm not paying that money for him, no matter who we are. And I think for United it's a bit different because they've lost Varane. The centre backs are either getting older, falling over, or not very good, if we're being honest.
I wonder which one you're allocating which to.
So he's getting the opportunity. He will get a greater opportunity of playing in the Premier League. And you know what? If he's really good, what a great move by Man United. £52 million for somebody who's 18 and has played less than 50 League One. League games.
I think it's professional games.
Yeah, professional games.
Yeah, if he's really good, he's going to Real Madrid for like 80 million in 3 years anyway.
Well, this is the thing: is that if he turns out to be really good, fair play to them. I think they did it a long time ago with Gerard Piqué. I don't think they paid anything for him though, did they? I can't remember. But he ended up going to Barcelona. But they've tried it with other players. Martial, is he just left? Was he still there?
Free agent.
Yeah, he's free agent. He's free. Yeah, so he was there for 9 years and he never really realised his potential. So it's a chance that United feel they can take because they have the opening to offer the player, and also they have a certain amount of money. And I know they've spent a lot of money over the last couple of years, and they're not expected to be able to spend as much this year. But they've brought in a couple of players already, and I think for Liverpool, there are other areas of the squad that need strengthening, as opposed to that, or they believe might do, depending on who leaves between now and the end of the transfer window. So, as we wrote from the beginning, it was regarded as outside of the transfer aims for this summer, something that they'd really like to have done, but ultimately they've not been able to do it. And let's be honest, Liverpool couldn't, Real Madrid couldn't, Paris Saint-Germain couldn't, or rather wouldn't, and United did. So, as I say, if they end up getting a good deal, fair play to them, but it's that risk that Liverpool and the others just weren't willing to take at this moment in the player's career.
I see it as a missed opportunity in the sense that it's an opportunity that Man United have been able to take advantage of, but it was a lot of money for a player that wouldn't be starting games for Liverpool. And if you've got a choice of starting Yoro or Kwanzaa, I think all those Liverpool persuasion will be going Kwanzaa.
Well,
all day
Kwanzaa
long.
was starting above Konate
Exactly.
by the end of the season. And also, it would have made Yoro the second most expensive defender in Liverpool's history.
And for centre-backs, for a long time, has been the right number. It's only because Liverpool have been stung by injuries that you feel like we'd like a fifth, we'd like a sixth. If Konate could put together a season without missing,
So that's a big if, though.
It is a big if, but if he could manage that, then what game time is he going to get? Because you're going to go with your first choice pairings. Gomez isn't getting the game time at centre back already, despite being one of those options. Liverpool have just got that recent memory of 2020-21 where all three of them got struck down and they had to put Henderson there, they had to put Fabinho there, they got in Kabak and Ben Davis, and it's always could make do with another one here. And at least in the past, when they have had injuries, they can turn to the academy. They've got the next one coming through with it. Reece Williams a few years back. Kwanzaa now, big difference between quality there. But then you've also got Nat Phillips. They have had that depth. There isn't really that standout one coming through who's ready to make that step now after Kwanzaa, because you've got like Amara Nallo, who's 17. I think Carter Pennington, he's probably one they'll be looking at, who was in the Europa League B list last year. But it's still a big step up for them. They need to prove themselves at under 21s level before you can say, yeah, you could be that fifth, sixth choice. So it does leave that hole there.
I think that makes the Vandenberg situation quite interesting.
It's almost like you might have seen my...
Genuinely haven't seen it, yeah. Because, what will happen to him? He's somebody who's now proven, isn't he? You could argue that they've actually got a greater strength in depth than they ever have with the five of them.
Well, I was just about to say, obviously a few weeks ago, Richard Hughes said at the press conference, didn't he, that it'd be opportunistic signings this summer. That's how they were going to be operating. And all of a sudden in Vandenberg, they've got a player who they value, roughly £20 million and has interest from the Premier League. So, if you're talking about, a third or fourth reserve, is all of a sudden has Vandenberg got an opening there, and is he good enough to fill that role?
The thing is that, again, that's down to the manager now, and of course I've not spoken to him at all. You've only spoken to him once. So,
and funnily enough, Vandenberg wasn't top of the
so it's something that he's going to have to decide. Nice problem to have. And of course, if he doesn't stay, he'll get sold. Wolfsburg won him. Mainz won him.
I think PSV,
but they only want to spend 15-16 million. I say only. It would literally be their record signing ever. You know what I mean? So, but that's that kind of standard that the player is. Now you're looking at Liverpool. If you've got a player here who others want to sign for almost 20 million euros, why would you then go and spend 30 million euros on a centre back to replace him in the squad? Doesn't make any sense.
I suppose you could argue as well. Yes, Yoro had experience in the Conference League last season, but you could argue Vandenberg's played 3 seasons now in the Bundesliga, I think it is, or certainly.
And also, it's also to do with the type of player that they are. They are two different. I say this, I've never seen Yoro play, but by all accounts, I've seen him play. But they are different types of centre back. Not all centre backs are the same. You wouldn't say Virgil van Dijk's like Gerald Quansah, for example. You know, so there is that kind of thing. Although it's actually not too far removed now. Now that I've thought about it, but yeah, it is.
I think Yoro's a bit more classy with the ball, isn't he?
Yeah, say Konaté's not like Van Dijk. That's a better way of putting it. So yeah, there are different centre backs, and no one's like Matip, for example. So just because the centre back doesn't mean they are the same. It depends what Slot decides is the way that he wants to go with the tactics that he's using, which is what made it interesting when Quansah did an interview, didn't he, with the Liverpool website, where he said, "I'm really enjoying it. A lot of my attributes seem to, the tactics are more or less the same, but everybody manages different."
It's like playing on the ball, wasn't he?
Yeah, and he said my attributes seem to fit the way that things are going so far. I mean, it's early days, obviously, when he'd been together for a couple of weeks, but it looks as though it's looking good for Quansah. So again, there you go. You got 4 centre backs straight off, 5 with Vandenberg if he stays.
Something else to consider though is because of the international tournaments that you're not going to have Gomez, Konaté, and Van Dijk back until August after that US tour. So there's not going to be any resolution really on Vandenberg or Nat Phillips until you're in America, because you've got to wait for those ones to come back. And just so you've got those options. And I think the Mind sporting director said that himself. Like, they've asked the question of Liverpool. They've been in talks. I think the Athletic reported there's been bids rejected. But Liverpool aren't in a position to sell a centre-back at the moment, because they've got 3 who aren't back for another 2-3 weeks. They've got to look after themselves here, and that means these players are going to have to be patient. And then you've got players coming back, or conversations with ones who are already there with contracts and everything. Like, you don't know if Alisson's head's going to be turned by Saudi Arabia, so then you can't make a decision on Kelleher. You can't make a decision on Owen Beck until you've spoken with Kostas Tsimikas about what he wants to do. Andy Robertson's got a couple of years left on his contract. Trent Alexander-Arnold's contract, Salah's contract, this Luis Diaz. You can't sign a left forward until you know what he wants to do. So it's all just waiting, all these plates spinning, and having those conversations when they are back, having assessed the squad and seeing how many of the solutions are internal and how many you're going to have to move on and dip into the transfer market.
But what did Richard Hughes say? Crescendo.
Exactly.
Towards, a great word, towards August. End of July, early August.
We might actually have a really busy deadline day.
Yeah, I mean, I hope not. It's Friday, isn't it? It's 11 o'clock as well.
Yeah, it is.
You can be bothered with that.
Well, if any of the South American players are listening, Luis Diaz, Alexis McAllister, Alisson Becker, if you do want to watch Liverpool's pre-season in action in America to get the best discount of your
this is
Nord
good.
VPN,
This is good. This isn't it? This is good. You forgot it earlier, by the way.
.com/Blood Red. Our link will give you 4 extra months on a 2-year plan. There's no risk with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. The link is in the episode description box for all further details. Moving swiftly on.
That is great. I've just got to enjoy that for a minute, because I'm going to be using Nord when I'm on holiday next week, so I can watch the games
about
anyway.
Nord all you want.
I used it. It actually does work. I couldn't get it to work initially, but now it does work.
Do you want to talk us through your experience of using Nord, Ian?
Yeah, I used the app and then I watched the footy at the end.
Yeah. Amazing. And did you use the /Blood Red link? Yes, you did.
Yes, of course I did. No, I've already used it.
Yeah, we don't need to, because we've already been sorted out. We've got it months back.
We have to do it once. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Theo, one player that you mentioned there, Trent Alexander-Arnold, it's an interesting conundrum with him at the minute. Obviously, he's got less than 12 months left on his current deal. Obviously, there's been a change of regime at Liverpool, not just the manager, but also in terms of sporting director of who would deal with the contracts. There was a piece by Miguel Delaney in The Independent this week that basically referenced his growing friendship with Jude Bellingham at the Euros, and basically said that those in and around England can't believe that might be a swinging factor next year to maybe give Liverpool 1 more year and then go to Real Madrid on a...
They just had the exact same 2 years ago with the other way around, though.
Well, just is there any concern there from you at the moment that Trent, player of his calibre? I mean, if you are Real Madrid, this is surely the prime time to make a really aggressive approach for Trent. It's a new regime. He owes the new manager no loyalty, as he would have done with the Jurgen Klopp. So can you understand why fans maybe are getting a bit twitchy at this stage?
Yeah, I think when you got these Real Madrid links coming through this week, it's the first time fans have thought, hang on, it's not a sure gone thing that he stays here. It is up in the air. You're waiting for those talks, and you're fighting against the clock, racing against the clock. I know Doyley's mentioned it, or he will be mentioning it in his column. He's already written it. You won't have read it yet. It's not out yet.
Check out the Echo website tomorrow morning.
But yeah, it's going to be an interesting one for how these talks go, because Liverpool are now in this situation where if they do what they've done historically, they keep him until the end of the deal if he's not going to stay, and that's going to get backlash. When he's so young, peak of the years still ahead of him, and you're risking that walking away for nothing, or you're risking him going for a cut price fee in January when he can agree a pre-contract agreement. You're putting all your eggs in the basket to get a contract signed here, and I can understand why the suggestions are he might be a little bit uncertain about what he wants to do because of the new manager coming in, he's not met him yet. He's not had those first talks with him yet. We know that Arne Slot was like on the phone to Virgil van Dijk when he took over as captain, but it doesn't sound like he's had that chance to speak to Trent yet. So there's always going to be that uncertainty, and it's just waiting for them to get together and see what happens. I'd still be very surprised if he leaves. He just seems, he's Mr. Liverpool, isn't he? He's going to be the next captain if he stays around. He's going to be part of this team for another 6, 7, 8 years if he wants to be. But when you've got that lure of Real Madrid dangled in front of him, when he's already won everything he needs to win at Liverpool, he's already established that legacy. It's just becoming a multi-Champions League winner, a multi-Premier League winner. Maybe he does get his head turned, maybe he does fancy doing it elsewhere, as we've seen other players do before. You can't really hold that against him. You just want him to stay. You want him to agree that contract and be this all-time great Liverpool legend. Because if he stays for a duration of his career, he is going to go down as one of their greatest ever players. He's already in the best 11, isn't he? But you just want him to stay, get it done.
Absolutely. And Doyle, what are your kind of thoughts on the situation? Because you hear a lot of people say he's a local lad and he's come all the right the way through. But I think in football, in modern football especially, I think people take loyalty for granted, don't they? And they think, well, that will do. He loves the club. But as Theo says, he has won everything, and not even from a playing perspective. But you think now footballers are brands as well. That is like moving to Real Madrid. It takes you to kind of another stratosphere, doesn't it?
Well, a couple of things to talk about here. You mentioned the Bellingham stuff. Well, as Theo said, last year it didn't persuade him to join Liverpool, did it? So I don't think that's going to make. I know, but I don't think it's going to make any difference. Well, let's put it this way: Would you just because you're mates with somebody, would you go and work with them? Because
you're mates with Steve, you want to leave.
Hi, Steve.
So it's not. I know what you're saying, but I'm pretty sure in the list of considerations that Trent looks up his future, might be able to pal about a bit with Jude Bellingham's right at the bottom.
He looks at what Bellingham's done, not only on the field this year. Obviously he's won the Champions League. Cool, Trent's done that as well. But I mean, from a brand point of view and kind of how his status.
Did you just say from a brand point of view?
Well, footballers are brands now.
Brand Trent.
Pardon?
Brand Trent.
Well, I mean,
what's Brand Trent?
TAA 66, isn't it?
Yeah, but what's Brand Trent? I'm saying is that Brand Trent he's Liverpool,
yeah,
etc., etc.
I'm saying
his brand. If he goes to Real Madrid, he just becomes another player. That's the thing. So I don't necessarily think the brand's going to have anything to do with it either. Sorry for knocking down you.
No,
So that's that thing. Yeah, I think obviously I'm quite old compared to everybody else in this room, apart from our producer. He's got more hair though. So anyway,
1-1.
Steve McManaman, Michael Owen. These are two situations which are pretty similar. For those who don't remember, i.e. anybody under the age of 30 probably, Michael Owen.
I'm the cut-off point on McManaman and Owen. I don't remember.
Michael Owen. He entered the last 12 months of his contract. Liverpool just changed the manager. The manager had been the one that previously was the person who'd helped mentor him throughout his career. Is this sounding familiar?
Yeah. Sounds like you've maybe written
exactly,
a piece on this.
Yeah. And then...
both of them, isn't it?
And yeah, well, we'll come to that in a bit. And then, obviously, Real Madrid come in and put in a bid of, I think it was £8 million. And Liverpool went, you know what, yeah, you can go. And then before that, McManaman was a bit different in the sense that he decided at the start of the season he was going to leave, and Liverpool would get no fee for him. But this was in the days where the Bosman ruling, which is obviously now has been set in stone for nearly 30 years, I think it is now, where basically it's mad to think about it. But in the old days, when a player reached the end of his contract, they weren't necessarily then allowed to leave. Clubs were then still able to command a fee. So clubs had all the power, and then obviously the players got more of the power. And McManaman was the first, probably in England actually, one of the first high-profile players to go, well, I'm off at the end of my deal. And he went off and signed for Real Madrid and obviously did quite well there. Now, with both of these, I think with McManaman, this might sound a little bit familiar. My question of this whole thing is, how has it been able to get to this point with Liverpool? How have they able to get to... Trent's now got less than 12 months left on his deal. A bit different for Van Dijk and Salah, because obviously they're a lot nearer the end of their careers, and they've signed various extensions. We know about Salah's one the other year. But with Trent, just because he's a local lad doesn't necessarily mean, he's going to be staying. I think McManaman felt a little bit taken for granted. And don't forget, this is what happened with Steven Gerrard as well. And Liverpool, and it was only a very late change of heart overnight, wasn't it, where he decided to stay that stopped him going to Chelsea. So whether or not that feeds into it, I don't know. But there will be questions asked to Liverpool because it's still hanging over them. I mean, I actually agree. I agree with Theo in the sense that there's no way Liverpool are going to sell him this summer, because I don't think there's any way, going what we've talked before about Leny Yoro, that Real Madrid are going to pay a fortune for a player they know they can get for nothing in 12 months, especially when they're Danny Carvajal. He plays right back for them. He's fairly decent, so they don't exactly need one right now, do
They've
they?
had the same issue with Davis, haven't they? They wanted him from Bayern, but he's now staying for... Was it another year, or did he sign a new contract?
He's not signed a new contract yet, but I think he's...
Yeah, but then again, that's an example of perhaps they did want him and then things have changed over the 12 months. Again, this is the thing that can easily happen, which is why still that puts the power with Real Madrid, because then they ultimately make the decision. They go, oh, just as well we didn't get him in the end. So that's why I think... you look at Emre Can, all the players who've left recently. Liverpool were quite happy to allow their contracts to go down because Klopp always thought, well, we can just get maximum value from them on the pitch. It's better that way. And I would imagine Slot's probably this. Again, we're guessing, but I'd be surprised if there's been a change of tack in that regard, where Liverpool just go, right, we just need to get rid of him then, because I think that causes other problems. Then it's like, well, we need a replacement right now. But at least if he goes, they've got a year to sort it, and even they've got a year to blood Conor Bradley into the position or whatever they're going to do with it. So I do think Trent will be a Liverpool player of this season. I don't think he'll go in January. That'd be a bit daft. But the onus is now on Liverpool to get it sorted, because they've allowed it to slip. And I know there's the various things of since Klopp told them that he was going last November, they've had to they had to bring in a whole new coaching staff. I'm pretty sure they haven't got all the coaches in yet, have they? And they're going to America next week, so they need to get a bit of a movement on that. And Van Dijk and Salah aren't as important in that sense, but Trent is. That it's been allowed to get to this point, it will be a question that Liverpool will have to answer if he decides not to stay, because I would imagine it might form part of the reason.
I was going to say, another thing to consider here is it isn't just on Liverpool, Real Madrid. Like, Trent and his group are probably thinking, well, why haven't we had talks yet? The manager or the new head coach is in, sporting director's in, and it could be quietly putting the pressure on. Like, it's only this week when those reports about Real Madrid interest is ramped up again that you're starting to think, hang on, is there a possibility where he leaves? Maybe if you're putting that pressure on a bit more, it aids aids Trent's hand in negotiations to get that better deal, to get the length of deal he wants, because then they are going to have to come out and fight for his signature a bit rather than just take it for granted. Like when he signed his last one, it was when Liverpool were in a real flurry of getting players to commit to their futures to the club. But it was almost a surprise that it was not a short contract, but it was shorter than some of them. Like, you think Andy Robertson's got an extra year on it. Alisson Becker, I think, has got another couple of years. Fabinho's would have been if he'd stayed put. But Trent's was one of the shorter ones. And from a business point of view, Liverpool point of view, that is going to be, well, he's still got his peak years ahead of him. There's no point giving him a really long contract when you know you're going to get to this point and you need to renegotiate, because he's worth more to the club. He's potentially your captain or your vice captain. He's going to demand more of a wage. He's going to be your most marketable player. Going back to your favourite brand.
We don't talk about brands now.
So it would make sense for it to be a shorter deal, so then they can go back to the negotiating table and then do something that's more fitting of his profile now. So it's just putting that pressure on to get him around the table and give him that deal. Like, if you're Trent Alexander-Arnold's camp, you want Liverpool to think that his head's been turned and he might go, because they're going to have to really fight to keep him at the club. So it's cat and mouse. It's just who's the one doing the chasing out of the three parties.
The other thing as well is that if you're Trent, you're going up to the manager and going, right, and Richard Hughes actually, and saying, right, who are we signing, where do we want to sign, and where am I going to be playing? And I think those are other things as well, especially, although, I know it's different with England. I think his midfield experiment clearly didn't really work, although that was partly because the rest of the players around him were pretty atrocious in those games.
All very slow, weren't they? No pace in that team at all.
Can we just talk about the Euros for a second?
The tournament.
How? Can we just talk about the Euros for a second? I thought the Euros was really poor.
Yeah.
I thought it was poor. I think there were no, apart from one or two.
Everyone looked knackered.
Too many games, too many below average teams.
Jurgen Klopp was right.
About what?
Too many games.
Yeah, too many games, too many below average teams, not enough memorable games. There were some good goals, to be fair. But not enough breakout performances. And you could say the same thing about the Copa America. Although they had a good fight, to be fair.
They had a few, didn't they, by the sounds of it?
But they got a slot for the pitches, though, didn't they? It doesn't sound good for the World Cup in 2 years. But anyway, that'll be a thing, won't it? Like, one of the Liverpool players will injure themselves on the pitch in America, and there you go. You heard it here first.
Going back
to nowhere saying that, does he?
Completely throwing me off my next one. But my point was going to be that going back to Trent, I suppose his contract was always going to be a huge one, as you say, because Klopp's contract was meant to run until 2026. So whether Trent's contract was next year or whenever, he always knew that new contract was going to take him into a new reign, a new era. So he was probably always, as you say, Theo, wanting to be looking what these new ideas would be. How does Liverpool's life after Klopp look? Van Dijk and Salah. So I suppose on one hand you can say that Liverpool maybe should have got it tied down earlier, but from Trent's perspective, you can understand why he's maybe let it run down to within 12 months, can't you?
Yes and no, because you can say he's waiting to see what happens with the manager and how Liverpool are. Liverpool could have a season of transition, but we wouldn't be saying in 12 months if they did, that's them done. Klopp's gone, they're on the decline now. You'd still expect them to come back stronger as they have done the last couple of times they've had blips, on the basis that even though they're going to have to find long-term successors for a Salah or a Van Dijk, they've got some very good academy players. They've got some familiar faces back in the FSG camp looking after the football side of things and how they overall manage the club. The club is managed in a pretty good state, and they do have all that forward thinking. So having been part of Liverpool for so long, Trent should have that trust in what's coming. But then footballers are a bit insecure, don't they? They want to be told they're loved. They want the arm around the shoulder. And he hasn't had that with England, has he? So he's going to be feeling a little bit insecure when he's had people turn on him saying, he can't defend, but he's not a midfielder. There's not the same amount of scrutiny on Kyle Walker, for example, for giving away 2 goals in the final. So he's going to have all these doubts going through his head. And it's a very emotional time when you come off an international tournament. It doesn't go how you want. He's waiting to have that holiday, refresh. And you still got to go back and meet the new head coach for the first time, have those conversations with him. Like we've seen him get on really well with, say, Mohamed Salah, for example, and to the extent that, if they want Salah to stay, you feel a bit more confident they can come to an agreement. But until Arnold's put in front of him, it's still very uncertain. So it's going to be, 3 weeks until some of these questions can be answered.
I wouldn't be surprised if he gets to October and he signs a deal if he quite likes what he's seeing at the club.
Yeah, well, you heard it here first.
Again.
Do you want to write it now? We'll just leave it in drafts.
Doyle, and if we haven't spoke about Real Madrid enough already,
do we have to? My favourite team.
We're going to go for
them
one
and
more.
Tottenham, both playing white. Anyway, go on. Sorry.
Them in England, then you can throw that in there.
Yeah, but England were just boring, weren't they?
Alexis McAllister's father has spoken.
I wonder where that was going then, but go on.
He was asked about.
Thank you to my Egyptian friend for pointing this out, by the way. It's the only reason it's hit the
sure
World Wide Web.
I'm sure he's watching this on Nord, so shout out if he is. But he was asked about rumours linking McAllister with a move to Real Madrid. Obviously, Madrid preparing for life without Cruz. He said Alexis is performing very well at Liverpool, and this is an important thing to say at the moment. There are no negotiations from Real Madrid with Alexis, and the player will continue at Liverpool next season. But he said if future offers arrive to sign Alexis, we will discuss them with Liverpool's management. I suppose that's nothing really out of the ordinary. It's exactly what you'd expect him to say. But is it a bit concerning that so many teams or Real Madrid are being linked with so many of Liverpool's key players at the moment? We just spoke about it's a season of transition. I
swear you did this in a piece before you went away. Well, it's a new manager. That's always going to happen.
Yeah, that's always going to happen anyway. Also, Real Madrid are the Champions League winners, so technically speaking, they're better than everyone else. So they can just go to almost everybody else and say, yeah, I like your player. That's just going to be the same wherever. Anybody should treat it as a compliment in a way. What Liverpool needs to do is, you notice that Real Madrid weren't trying to sign any of the players when Liverpool were the Champions League winners. And that's, you know what I mean? So it's like, there's kind of that hierarchy. So
he went to West Ham and got Adrian.
so Liverpool just need to crack on and win the Champions League and the Premier League again, and then Real Madrid will stop trying to buy the players.
Theo, any concern from you with those comments or the interest?
No, not at all. He's been at the club a year. You'd imagine you're going to get a few years out of him before that sort of club comes knocking. And he did a few interviews, didn't he, before the Copa America or during. I think you probably turned around one, if not both of them, where he pretty much made it clear that
he said he was at the
happy
right club. He said he was at the right club. Yeah.
There's no concerns about McAllister going anytime soon. Obviously, his dad's not closed the door on a future transfer, but that's what any agent, anyone close to any player will always do. You're happy where you are unless you're unhappy, but you could go in the future. But you might stay. It's always keeping your options open.
Well, unless, Doyle, you want to pick the whole 22-man squad for the Preston game, pick your first half and second half team.
I wish not to do that, no. I wish not. What I would say is that the under-18s have gone off to Germany, haven't they? They're playing in they got a prestige friendly against Bayern Munich. That's next Thursday. And they're playing in let me just read this out correctly, because I've just been sent this, the Schwabisch Hall Cup. Yes, in which they're playing today against Hoffenheim and tomorrow against Eintracht Frankfurt and St. Pauli. So
when we say 18s, it's basically 16s, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm not sure whether he's gone, but he was being touted for it, wasn't he? Jubril Cissé's lad.
Yeah.
No, what's his name? Prince
yeah.
Kobe. Cisse.
Great name.
It is, isn't it?
Really
I wonder where he got that middle name from. Yeah, not difficult. But yeah, So it's interesting because, again, it's not just the first team, because you've got 21s will be coming back, although most of them are with the first team, will probably be playing today against Preston, to be honest. One player we didn't mention earlier, which I wanted, was Kate Gordon.
Yes.
And towards the end of last season, I was banging on about him quite a bit. I think because Curtis Jones I saw he did a little Instagram thing just praising him a little bit during the week. He's been training with the first team, and I think this is a good chance for him if he can get out there and get to America and do some things. I genuinely think he could be in and around the first team squad if that's what Liverpool want, because I just think he's good enough, and I think he's outgrown the under-21s now.
Yeah.
I think he obviously lost 18 months through that injury that he had. Same with Percentage, actually. But, Kate Gordon played in a League Cup semi-final, started one 2.5 years ago.
I think you told me that was he the youngest ever player to start a major semi-final for Liverpool, was he?
Yeah. So
heard it here first.
Yeah, well, you did, 2.5 years ago. Yeah. So yeah, he's been knocking around for quite a while, and I think he's done his recovery, his rehab, he's rehabilitated himself and his body and his mind as well, playing for the under-21s last season. I just think it'll be interesting to see what happens to him in the next couple of weeks.
And that's a position, isn't it, Theo, that a lot of people are kind of crying out for. Certainly, in the kind of not too distant future is, you're looking at Mohamed Salah, what's going to happen with his future. And then after that, there's really, you kind of put in makeshift options there. So there is an opening there for Gordon, isn't there? Especially, if you think players will be doing 45 minutes each, 60 minutes each or 60 minutes, whatever, in America, there's going to be plenty of game time whilst the likes of Diaz and Jota and whoever else are away.
Yeah, that's how Doak got that first team opportunity last year, wasn't it? Because he did so well in pre-season. But doing well in pre-season doesn't always translate into getting your opportunities in the first team when the season gets underway. Like the Europa League and the League Cup give you options, but you really have to be that next level to be trusted in the Premier League. It takes time to actually get turned to in those. So with Kate Gordon being a bit older and he has played in a semi-final and everything, he's got that hunger to make up for lost time. Is that chance to push on? Because he needs to, no matter what. He can't be in the 21s next season. If you're not ready for the first team, you need a loan move. Yeah. You need to have that senior football so then you can push on again, like we saw with Harvey Elliott a few years ago. You can put that on Ben Doak as well. He's too good for the 21s. If he's not in the first team, it's getting that loan move to the right level so they can kick on again. It's going to be a good opportunity for them because there are a lot of exciting young players. And you talk about succession for Van Dijk or a Salah. Well, with Kwanzaa, you're seeing there's your ready-made placement for Van Dijk. If the unthinkable happens and Trent goes, you've got Conor Bradley there, but Doak, Gordon, and all these other youngsters, we could throw that lad getting in from Chelsea from one of the wide positions, couldn't we? I know he's only 15.
I don't think he'd be allowed into America at this moment in time.
But
I know
they've always had so many exciting, attacking, wide players at the academy, and it's one of the reasons why all three of us like go and see the youth league games, because you see the next one's coming through, and it's when they can really make a name for themselves. So it's just taking those next steps and staking that claim on the first team, and seeing if you can be the person who's in the right place at the right time when Mohamed Salah's Liverpool career comes to an end.
Absolutely.
Have you got any questions?
Not ones that we should probably ask. We've got two people arguing in the comments about whether FSG are ambitious owners, but we'll leave that to the Bottom Line podcast.
Yeah, we don't want to do that podcast.
Why is it FSG's fault that they're not really running the show anymore? They brought Michael Edwards back to do it.
Just speaking about young players, I mean, that was something Slot highlighted in one of his in-house interviews the other week. We now know Aaron Briggs has come in and he's going to replace Vitor Matos. I mean, that just shows that, as Theo says, obviously there's contingency planning, in terms of the players, but also the coaches to kind of continue that kind of steady stream of players coming into the first team.
Well, they're all on the same site, haven't they? Have been for a few years now, so it would make sense just to keep that going, because if you invest in the money in your academy, why would you not want to try and make sure you can get the best out of the players that you've got there?
Absolutely. Well, plenty of intrigue to see what happens and who takes their chances over the coming weeks in pre-season. But that's all we've got for today. From myself, Keifer MacDonald, Theo Squires and Ian Doyle. Toodle pip.